Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I have an interesting video. See, we have a bucket out here with a spout on it, and I have a couple of different types of media. We're going to build a water filter. So let's get to it. First thing we're going to need is some cotton. I have some 100% cotton batting here. This I just ordered off Amazon. I'll put a link for some of this stuff down in the description, just so you get an idea. But you can buy this anywhere, Walmart, Joann Fabrics, or probably even Michael's, or any store along those lines that would sell. You know, it's for sewing and crafts. You know, it's just cotton batting, like what would go inside of a quilt. I would certainly make certain that you get 100% pure cotton batting. I'm not sure if anything synthetic will accomplish the same task, but ultimately, you know, I picked 100% pure cotton. And as you can see, this isn't even opened yet. I was holding on to all of these materials because actually this is my emergency filter. You know, if I were to need it and have to filter water, this is what all this is for. But I really don't have a way of showing you how to do this without actually building the filter and using it. So, you know, some of this stuff, I am going to try to take it apart when I'm done, and to try to, you know, restore some of the materials that I'm using. But, you know, the sand is going to mix with the gravel. The sand is going to get in the cotton. It's going to be hard to do that. So I'm probably just going to end up replacing some of this stuff. But the activated carbon and the cotton were really the most expensive thing. The bucket I picked up at Home Depot, it's just a standard food grade bucket. Wander around the plumbing section long enough and you can find, you know, some sort of spout, you know, to where you can put it on. Ultimately, you wouldn't need that. You could just drill a hole in the bucket. I did this, and with a fitting on there that a garden hose would connect to. And then I have a short piece of washing machine hose that I cut the end off of, you know, to where if I have to filter water, you know, I can actually control it. You know, I can hook the hose to it and fill a bottle or fill a water bottle or something, as opposed to just being limited as to it coming out of the spout. Not necessary, just more of a convenience. You know, the washing machine hoses are pretty cheap to buy at Home Depot or whatever. The fittings were probably a few dollars. I don't remember. I built this a couple of years ago. But again, ultimately, you know, a bucket, preferably food grade, because, you know, you are filtering water through it. And a hole in the bucket would really be all that you would need. Wouldn't be as clean as something like this, but it would work. So again, the spigot and the hose and all that's just kind of a preference, you know, that I made for convenience for myself. The next thing is I have a bag of activated carbon. Now this is in a like a mesh bag sack, which does, you know, it is going to allow me to salvage the carbon when I'm done. So this I will be able to reuse. You know, it's a zipper bag, you know, so I can, you know, zip this up and just put this in here. The zipper bag is not necessary. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is create layers with the media. So as the water filters through each layer, you know, it passes through each one, and each layer is thick enough. I would stick to the rule of a 2-inch layer. You know, this obviously is a rectangle and not round. To be able to get this back out of here, I'm going to put it in here as a rectangle. It's certainly not going to fill all of the space. So some of the water is not going to pass through here. So this water filter is not going to be as efficient as if you actually built it the right way by putting your layers in, not in a bag. I'm going to try to reuse this. I'll take it out and, you know, try to dry it out. You can't leave this kind of stuff wet. Bacteria could grow even on the carbon. You know, but for the sake of the video and the fact that I don't want to, you know, one-time use this activated carbon, I'm going to use the mesh bag. But you get the idea. Now, in the bottom, to try to take up some of the space, because you'll see, you know, my spigot is about here where my hole is. So I have about 1.5 inches of space. So what I've done is I just got some larger rock. You can see it down in there. That I picked up off a construction site. It's just like construction entrance stone. But ultimately, when you go to get your media or your stone for building this, you want to get 2 or 3 different size gravel or stone, because you want it to you want the water to filter through it and for it to pick up particles. Basically what I have in this blue bucket, this Lowe's bucket here, is we have a pond nearby in the neighborhood, and yesterday I went down to the pond and scooped up a bucket of water. So this is about 24 hours ago I took it out of the pond. I didn't leave it sit for any specific purpose. Just I didn't have time to make the video yesterday when I actually got the water. So it sat in the bucket in the driveway overnight. I think it even did rain a little bit on it, but basically it's pond water. So I certainly would not drink that water as is. I wouldn't even boil that water and then drink it, merely because it's got stuff floating in it. It's, you know, it's got particulates and just stuff. So that's what this is going to do. Now, after this is finished, after I pour the water and it filters through, the particulates, the activated carbon will neutralize a fair amount of chemicals, including bleach or chlorine. What this filter does not do is filter out viruses or bacteria in the water. So you want to make certain that after you filter your water, you boil it to kill off any bacteria or viruses. You can boil it beforehand, but if there's any virus or bacteria in your media, and it could be a microscopic amount, then your boiled water, which has no viruses or bacteria, is going to go through your filter, filtering out chemicals, particulates, and it could pick up virus or bacteria coming through here, coming through the filter, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So you definitely want to filter first and then boil. In the field, like in the woods, you can strain water through a bandana or a shamag and kind of trying to basically accomplish the same thing. This just does a much better job because we're going to use several different types of media. Like I said, I have the cotton here. I have the activated carbon. I also have some sand, and this is just a bag of Sackcrete general purpose sand, 60-pound bag. I had it left over from a job. And then I have some gravel here. This is just standard. It was left over from a landscaping project that I had. It's just all-purpose stone. It's basically like number 57 stone. And then I also have some fancier stone that was a partial bag that a friend of mine gave me. And this is like river rock. And it's multiple different sizes. The biggest sizes are about the same size as the 57 stone, and then it has, you know, smaller, even just pebble size stones, you know, about like that. And that's what you're looking for. And then there's the sand. So what I have, the big stone in the bottom, the water's really not going to filter through that. They're at the bottom. Most of my filtering is going to happen from here up. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in layers. I'm going to start with a layer of cotton, so my media, my stone, doesn't all fall down inside of the big stone and, you know, it did not do its job because it's down here inside the big stone. Now I have a pretty good level layer of the larger stone down here, which if you don't have a spigot and you just put a hole in the bottom of your bucket, you really wouldn't need that. I did that, like I said, just to take up the space between here and there. So I'm going to stick with like 2-inch layers. I'm going to start with a layer of cotton, probably not a very thick one, not a 2-inch layer. I'm just going to put a thin layer in there to separate my big stone from all the rest of this. And then I'll put my activated carbon in, and then I'll probably put the general purpose stone on top of that. And sand is what's going to make the mess. The sand is going to get into everything. You know, it's going to fall down through the rocks and get into the into the spaces and the voids, you know, between the rocks. So I want to try to minimize that as much as I can, because like I said, I want to try to reuse this. Now, if you're building this in a survival or a emergency situation, I don't know if I would be so particular about salvaging the materials after you're done using it, because you don't even know how long you're going to use it for. It could be days, it could be weeks, it could be months. So for the sake of the video and the fact that I'm going to try to salvage as much of this as I possibly can, just so I don't waste it, I'm going to put it together so I can take it apart and salvage. So I'm going to shut the camera down and pause for a minute, and then I'll get all my layers in here and kind of give you an idea. I'll grab a picture of each layer and and like I said, I'm going to do about 2 inches, 1.5 inches to 2 inches of each one. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. So it's going to be 10 inches. So I'm going to come up to about here in the bucket, 10 inches roughly from the top of the stone. And I have the top of the stone just sitting at the top of my spigot. So it's going to fill up about yay much. Once we get that done, I'll get the camera going again. We'll get some water dumped through it. I brought out 2 mason jars. So before I put water through, I'm going to take a sample of water out of the bucket and have it in the jar. And then once it filters through, we'll get another sample and we'll look at them side by side. So sit tight. I'll be right back with you. All right, folks, welcome back. Got my layers in. I'm up to about here. I didn't really measure 2 inches. I just put it in there till it was thick enough. And I'll tell you what I did to try to help separate my layers a little bit, just so I could reuse this. I took my bucket lid, which, I store my cotton and the large gravel and my activated carbon, which is down in there now. I just store it in the bucket, actually it's in the attic. And it lives there with my 55-gallon drums in case I would need them, for water filtration. So I used my bucket lid as a template, and I cut circles a little bit bigger than the bucket out of the cotton batting, because it's like a big sheet. Here, I'll show it to you. It's like a big sheet of cotton. It's about 1/4 inch thick, roughly. So I have 5 of those in there, on top of the stone, on top of the activated carbon, on top of the sand, on top of the pea gravel, and then that's about it. So I have 4 layers in there. So I have about 1 inch of cotton, but being separated like that, it should do its job. We'll find out here shortly. Let's see what this water looks like. That's not too bad. It's got a yellow tint to it. It's got some shit floating in it. So it's not that bad. It smells like pond water for sure. So we'll stick it over here and put it in the sun so you can see it. And then we will proceed to dump this bucket. That's going to take a little bit to filter down through. So this is going to take some time. I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I will get this entire bucket. I had this 5-gallon bucket filled up to here with water. I'm going to get this entire bucket through this filter, and we will see what it looks like when it comes out. So stick around. I'll be back for you in just a second. For me, it looks like it's going to be a little bit of time because I'm not even seeing the water seep down through there yet. So, and the fact that the first couple of loads, or the first little bit of water, is probably going to come out dirty because the sand, the gravel, none of that was really washed. You see, I took it right out of a bag from the store. So I would suggest, if you build one of these, to let it run for a little bit to get just whatever debris, dirt is on the gravel and in the sand to filter through first, and then you'll get clear water. So stick around, and we'll be back with you in a second. All right, just a little mid check for it. I put about half a bucket. I dumped my water into this orange bucket so I could use the blue bucket. I was going to put the water back in the blue bucket, but then realized that the dirty water was already in the blue bucket. I didn't feel like cleaning it, so I dumped it into the orange bucket, which was quite dirty. It had the bags of gravel in it that were stored in the shed. Not a big deal, but I wanted to collect the water, as you can see it. Now, I did allow this to fill up about 2.5 inches maybe, and I saw some particles down in the bottom. Looked like very small particles of sand, which I expected. As I said earlier, none of this was washed. The gravel was not washed gravel. The sand was not washed. The inside of the bucket was clean, and I did partially wash the construction entrance stone, the bigger stuff, but it was still dirty. It had, a layer of dust on it. So remember, when you're doing this, the first bit that comes out is not going to be crystal clear. It's going to have some turbidity, some very small particles of sand, or any type of debris that's in here that makes it through all of the filters or all of the layers of filter. And it was super, super tiny particles of sand, and it was just a little bit at the bottom. I swished it up real good, dumped it back in the top, and it's now trickling down. So it took about 10 minutes, maybe a little over 10 minutes for it to actually start coming out. There's a lot of layers of stuff in here that have to soak up and absorb, and I still have water to about right here. It hasn't even come down over the top of the stone yet, and I have a half a bucket. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to allow this entire amount to filter through here, and I'll get it going back with you. I did grab a sample of the pond water. You can see it's pretty yellow. Let me let the sun in here. If you can see it. It's pretty yellow. It's pond water. It smells like pond water. Certainly would not drink it right now. I'm not even sure that I would drink that after I boiled it. Maybe if I was desperate and super thirsty, I would drink it after I boiled it. But boiling only will kill bacteria and viruses. It doesn't do anything about the turbidity or the taste or anything. So even after boiling this and making it safe to drink, it's probably still like drinking nasty ass pond water. So again, the filter takes out the all of the particulates and gives you nice, clean, clear water. The activating carbon will neutralize any chemicals that are in it, as well as neutralize the organic material that's causing the foul taste, because I'm sure that tastes foul. I didn't taste it to find out, but I'm sure it tastes foul. It's pond water, for crying out loud. But the activated carbon will neutralize anything that gives it a funky taste. So with the exception of bacteria and viruses, that water should taste good. Generally, you can't taste bacteria or viruses, or if you can, I don't know. We'd have to ask the scientist on that. But either way, my recommendation, and I strongly urge that, if you build one of these to filter your water, be 100% certain to boil it afterwards, or treat it with chlorine or bleach, in order to kill any bacteria and viruses. So we'll pause, and I will let this finish and come back to you when it's done, when I have it all filtered through and I have a nice jar. We can shut it off. See, that's the convenience of the spout. So I can shut it off. As you can see, it's already considerably clearer than the pond water. So, and smells considerably different. That smells like pond water. This has kind of a quarry smell to it. It smells like rocks and quarry, if you know what that smells like. But no funky odor or anything like that. So we're going to continue to let this go, and we'll be back when it's all through. So sit tight. I'll be back with you in a second. All right, folks, we are still filtering water. It's been about an hour and a half. I've been filling the mason jar. Obviously not the one with the pond water in it, but the clean one. I've been filling it and just dumping it in the bucket here. I'm getting about 1 quart every 11 minutes. So you can gauge that by, 5 quarts an hour, roughly, maybe close to 6. So a gallon and a half, a little under a gallon and a half per hour. I still have a fair amount of water in the bucket, and I also still have a fair amount of water in the filter because I'm still, just above the peaks of the rocks, maybe right at the peaks of the rocks. So there's a lot in here. It's definitely time consuming. I'm going to say that if you're dying of thirst, that this is probably the most effective method. I would suggest maybe a Sawyer filter or a life straw, or just a quick strain through a bandana and boiling it. It's a lot easier than waiting this much time. But if you're in a emergency situation and you don't have access to clean water, having a filter like this that you can just keep dumping water in and it'll keep filtering it, and you can keep collecting it and boiling it and possibly storing it in another container, for future use. But as you can see, which we're going to give it another minute or so on that that jar there, and we'll be able to put these 2 jars side by side, and you'll be able to see just the difference between the filtered water and the pond water. And I'm sure there's ponds out there that have much worse water. I mean, this has got some organic material, something green floating in there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but again, it's out of a pond in a subdivision. It's fed by a stream. I have no idea what's in the stream. It goes through other people's property. I've never been to it. I see where it goes, but I've never actually walked it to see it. It's private property. But there's no telling what's in it, and all that flows down to, I'm in a subdivision. I'm sure people have, I see the trucks ride around where the people get their lawn treated. So I'm sure that there are chemicals, in that pond water at some point. Now there is fish in the pond. The neighborhood kids do fish in the pond, and I've seen, some, pretty decent bluegill, and actually even a few largemouth bass come out of there. It could have been smallmouth, I couldn't tell, but they were pretty decent size. So it does sustain fish and life in the summertime. This time of year when the sun is really strong and it's hot and it's humid, it does get a lot of algae in it. But it's a pretty big pond. I'd say probably maybe a little over 1 million gallons of water, roughly. The pond is about 400 feet by 200 feet, kind of like a kidney shape, natural pond. So it holds a fair amount of water. So in an emergency situation where I would need to utilize that pond, or if any of the neighbors would need to utilize that pond, I have a method to filter that water to make it safe to drink, or at least make it safe to boil. So we have just about 1 quart here, and I mean that's considerable. Let me put it against the white bucket, and you'll be able to see. I mean, that's a considerable difference. Looking at the water, I don't see anything floating in it. There's no particles. It's pretty clear. It smells, just fine. It smells like water. It's got a bit of a mineral smell to it, but that's to be expected because, we're using sand and aggregate to filter it. So I would, yeah. I mean, I'd almost be tempted to drink this. Again, this has not been made free of bacteria or viruses. This still could be unsafe to drink, even though it looks crystal clear and perfect and lovely. This still would need to be boiled or treated with aquatabs or bleach. I forget what the ratio is. I've been considering getting the scientist involved in some of this YouTube stuff, just so we have the scientist to fall back on to give us the skinny on what it would take. But as far as like dilution ratios for bleach, you can look that up. I think it's about 8 drops, or maybe like 2 teaspoons per gallon or something. I don't remember. I have it written down on a bleach bottle, but she generally knows that stuff right off the top of her head. So either way, it's a success. Again, not going to be something that I'm going to let this run so I can get this cleared out, so I can tear this down and kind of store away this stuff, and hopefully I can reuse it, for emergencies. Although I may end up ordering more activated charcoal to replace what's in here. I'll see how dirty it is, and maybe I'll rinse it. I'm pretty sure you can do that. I don't know. But again, it's a success. You saw how easy it was for me to build. You can definitely make activated carbon on your own. It's not difficult. Just go ahead and Google or look on YouTube for making charcoal and also making activated carbon, because they are kind of two different things, charcoal and activated carbon. Charcoal will do the job, just not as well as activated carbon. But it is possible to make both at home. So you can look that up, or you can just buy it on Amazon. It was pretty easy. I don't remember it being all that expensive, maybe 15 or 20 bucks. I'll look it up when I go to post the video. I'll give it a quick Amazon search, find a link for whatever it is that I bought. I think I bought a 5-pound bag, and I'll drop it in there just so you can see, that it's fairly inexpensive, and it goes a long way. I mean, that 5 pounds of carbon that I put in here, I don't know how much water it would filter, but I would be pretty comfortable, letting it filter, hundreds of gallons of water, and that'll last you a long time. I mean, that'll last a lot of people a long time, hundreds of gallons of water. I mean, I filled this jar 4 or 5 times. I have about 6 inches of water in the bucket here. I have about 6 inches of water left in this bucket here, and I'm just now with my water level getting down to the peaks of the gravel. So this bucket is still full of water. It's going to drip here for quite some time to get it all out of there. But again, it's a success. It wasn't very difficult to build, and it can be easily done at home. Just, in advance, get yourself a few things, a bucket, maybe some activated carbon, and you don't have to buy the cotton like I did. You can probably use an old t-shirt. I know if you look at some of the stuff online, you can even use grass and straw. That'll accomplish the same thing. There's more than one way to build this. I tried to keep it easy, simple, and clean, so ultimately I could reuse it if I had to, and I think I have achieved that. And the bucket, I think, at Home Depot was about $6. The carbon and the cotton off Amazon weren't much, maybe $30 for both. And then the gravel, I pretty much just scavenged around. I work in the construction industry, so it's not really hard for me to find gravel. But ultimately, you could buy it from Home Depot in bags if you choose to. So I ended up with gravel and sand for free, which is not hard to get. You stop any construction site, and more than likely there's a dump truck dumping gravel somewhere. And if you ask the guy, hey, can I get a shovel full of that gravel? 99 out of 100 times they'll tell you, yeah, it's a shovel full. They're buying it multiple tons at a time, and they're not going to care about giving you a shovel full. Now, you ask for a pickup load, they're probably going to tell you to pound sand. But asking for a shovel full, and that's really all you needed. I mean, I dumped a little bit out of each bag, and I still have a boatload, in here in both of these bags. I could probably build 2, maybe even 3 more of these with and they were partial bags. So again, it's not hard. And sand, same thing. Anytime they're doing concrete, or not concrete, but block work, where the guys on site are mixing mortar, 9 times out of 10 they will have a pile of sand. Could be masonry sand, could be construction sand. Most of the time it's going to be masonry sand, which is a little bit finer grit, but either one would work. And again, 99 out of 100 times, you ask for a shovel full, and they're going to give it to you. Guys on construction sites are usually pretty nice, but don't just go steal it. Ask for it. It's a shovel full of sand or a shovel full of gravel. More than likely, they'll give it to you. So there you go. DIY water filter at home for probably far less than $50, and filters hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water. In an emergency situation, this would do exactly what I needed it to do. I could, let the filter run, collect the water in a bucket. I could either put it on a fire outside, with a big pot and boil it, or I could take it, inside. Of course, if I had took it inside, that means I would have electricity. If I got electricity, that means my well works and I wouldn't need to be doing all this. But you get the idea. Treating it with bleach or aqua tabs or boiling it at minimum would make this completely safe to drink. And it really doesn't look like nasty water. It looks like good, clean water, and it smells like good, clean water. So in an emergency, this will do exactly what you need it to do. If you want to build one for yourself, go ahead. I advise it. It wasn't that difficult to build. If you do, I would not suggest assembling all the layers and putting it together for storage. Reason being, you're going to get temperature changes, and it's going to sweat, and stuff could build up in there and grow and cause issues for you. I would keep everything separate, like I did, keep it in bags. In fact, I put the cotton in a Ziploc over here, because I'm going to be reusing that. I just stuck it in a Ziploc. And then once this gets finished and I get it all apart, I'll put the stone back in the bags, and I'll get that mesh bag full of activated carbon out of it. I'll let it sit out in the sun and dry out. Probably dump it in a pan, a concrete mixing pan. Dump it in one of them and just spread it out. Let it dry real good, and then I'll put it back in the bag and probably put it in a Ziploc. And that's how this stores. This was just in the plastic down in there. And then I put the lid on, and that's how I store it. So there you go. That's it. I hope you learned something. I know I did. This was the first time I've ever, I've had this for several years, but I never actually put it together and used it. So there was a little bit of curiosity there for me. Will it actually work? And yeah, it did. Water came out. I'm getting about 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons an hour out of it. I know it doesn't look like much, but if you let it run, it does trickle. And I probably got 2 gallon in the bucket right there, maybe a little less than 2 gallon. So like I said, I timed it. I was doing about 11 minutes per jar, per quart, 4 quarts to 1 gallon. So, you're probably looking at maybe 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons per hour. So, with that being said, good luck with it, and we'll see you in the next one.